On this week's For Real Friday, and now that we're seeing bidding wars reemerge, I want to talk about the risks associated with putting in a clean offer or an offer that has no conditions. My first obvious point in this conversation is, as your realtor, I would never recommend that you put in an offer with no conditions. They are there to protect all parties involved, and every transaction goes a lot smoother when a buyer has the opportunity to have a conditional period. The most common conditions in any offer are the financing and inspection conditions. There are a lot of other conditions in varying scenarios, but I'd say like 90% of the time, these are the main ones in play. As buyers enter the market, I would say very few go in thinking that they will ever buy a property without conditions. But in a hot market and after losing a few homes, people's mindset sort of starts to change. They now know from experience and competing with other people that offers without conditions are usually really hard for the seller to pass up, even if the price is a little bit lower. Basically, the seller signs on the dotted line and their house is sold, versus taking the risk that someone's financing might fall through or that a deal breaker might be found during the home inspection. So this is why you shouldn't put in a clean offer. When it comes to financing, especially right now, but just in normal times, a pre-approval does not mean you are 100% going to get a mortgage. The lender has to approve that house and that deal. So what people don't realize is, let's say you see a house that's listed for $800,000 and then you offer them $875,000 with no conditions because you're pre-approved up to $900,000, so it falls well within your approval range. After you submit the firm deal to the bank will send an appraiser out to the house. If that appraiser deems that the house is only worth $825,000, you have to come up with the $50,000 difference in value because they will not lend over the appraised amount. There were several stories in the madness of 2017 about purchase prices having to be amended before closing because people could not get the funding because they overspent. So this is what brings me to the seller risk side of it. A conditionless offer may seem amazing, but you also want to feel confident as the seller that the buyer is educated about what they're doing, that they have the financial buffer to spend what they're spending, because you could be in a bit of a pickle if the house doesn't appraise out. You may decide, instead of putting it back on the market, to take less. Let's say that $825,000 instead of $875,000 so that those people can get a mortgage. Or just imagine the nightmare of relisting and reselling, then having to chase the previous buyers and suing them for any losses or damages. This scenario has and does play out. So although it may seem amazing to get $75,000 more than asking with no conditions, the financing condition really does protect everyone and it ensures a smooth closing. When it comes to a home inspection, this risk is definitely a big one for the buyers. There are so many things that can go wrong with a house, and you are basically assuming all of those problems. If there are any known defects, the sellers are legally obligated to disclose those things, but so many things that we find on a home inspection, you can tell that the sellers genuinely know nothing about it. I've just seen so many bad home inspections, and so when a client opts out of one, it's scary, and it does not matter the age of the house. The worst house I have ever owned was built in 2013, and people buy in that area all the time with no conditions because it's a newer home. It's scary. I like my clients to know exactly what home they are buying so that I know that they're going to be happy. And the only way to do that is with the home inspection. Like with my background in renovating and construction, I have a good knowledge when I'm walking around a house and can point out, any obvious red flags. But I can't see everything. So this condition is always something that I stress the importance of, even in a multiple offer situation. This could be a very costly decision for a buyer. There could be water in the basement, mold in the attic, foundation cracking, like the list goes on. Basically, it is just super risky to give a clean offer with no conditions. So unless you have copious amounts of cash, not only for the purchase, but for any issues that you may not see without a home inspection, I will never recommend you put in a clean offer. Conditions are still being accepted on majority of offers right now, so make sure that you're protecting yourself. I definitely believe, if you've been following me, you know this, that you will get the house that you are meant to get with conditions.